April 27, 1998.
The skies opened, a bolt of lightning came down, and God said, I love you. Yes!
It has been described as the new fountain of youth.
I have an erection like I was 25 again.
It is a pill called Viagra that seems to offer a real cure for impotence.
Viagra is going to revolutionize the treatment of erectile dysfunction.
Tonight, will Viagra bring about a new sexual revolution? How will chemically induced sex affect human relationships?
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Forrest Sawyer.
If all the frenzy keeps up, a little blue pill called Viagra will soon be the biggest-selling prescription drug in history, bigger than the baldness-fighting Rogaine, or the mood enhancer Prozac, or any of a number of drugs that have promised better living through chemistry. That's because Viagra holds out hope for a better sex life. And for millions of men, that is worth whatever price they are asking. To be clear, the manufacturer, a very happy company called Pfizer, takes pains to say this drug specifically helps many men suffering from impotence. But other men are already wondering if Viagra might be a new kind of aphrodisiac. Some women are wondering if it could help them. And almost everybody is curious about what it all means. Suddenly, it seems the once private world of sexual performance has come storming out of the closet, not likely to return. Now, what is it that's so alluring? Simply sex itself? Or are we looking for something more? And just how might this new menage a trois, men, women, and Viagra, change the way we get along in and out of the bedroom? First, a look at the birth of America's newest star with Nightline's John Donvan.
First, let's put some things in perspective. It is not the cure for cancer. It does not unlock the mysteries of world peace. It is not the key to understanding why we were put here on this earth. No, Viagra is just a pill. A small pill at that. A pill that doesn't even treat a life-threatening condition. And yet, Viagra is a star. A med for the media. A tablet for the tabloids. On Wall Street, the share price for Pfizer, Viagra's maker, has gone from $94 to $113 in just the 4 weeks since it was approved by the Food and Drug Administration. And at the Georgetown University Medical Center here in Washington, these were just a few of the messages received by lunchtime today.
I'm interested in Viagra.
I am calling about Viagra.
I faxed a request for Viagra.
John, I can tell you that as a practicing physician and dealing with these men day in and day out, the ability for me to prescribe a pill and give them a reasonable expectation of success with the pill has radically changed how I practice and radically changed what my patients have come to expect.
Of course, the reason that this tiny pill has made such a big impact in such a short period of time, the reason that nearly 150,000 prescriptions have been written since its introduction in March, is because of what Viagra does.
Very simply, it promotes and enhances blood flow into the penis to promote erection.
Or in the words of one happy patient,
The skies opened, a bolt of lightning came down, and God said, I love you.
according to Pfizer, the cause of impotence, contrary to popular belief, is usually not psychological.
The vast majority of the causes is really physical, secondary to diabetes, hardening of the arteries. Very common in men who've had prostatectomies for cancer of the prostate.
In David's case, it began with the onset of Parkinson's disease. A retired lawyer, he had tried other prescribed impotence remedies like testosterone injections to the groin and vacuum pumps to induce erections. He says they didn't work, but Viagra did.
From the outset, it was completely successful. There was nothing mechanistic about it. The only thing was a little patience. You have to wait an hour, or perhaps a little less.
David suffered none of the side effects, which in clinical trials have included headaches, nasal congestion, flushed faces, and a not quite understood tendency to confuse the colors blue and green. Minor inconveniences for the millions who might benefit.
The main study that looked at this from the late 1980s estimated that there might be as many as 30 million men who suffer some degree of erectile dysfunction.
But it is expensive.
It costs $9 a pill, and people want the HMOs to pay for this. And is this a luxury or is this a right to Is that a luxury or a right? That's the question.
It's a tough question for the big HMOs. Viagra actually costs $10 per pill, money they obviously would rather not pay, the way they typically don't pay for things like cosmetic surgery or birth control. On the other hand, those HMOs do want to keep their customers.
The problem for the HMO companies is that they're each fighting among themselves for market share. And denial of prescription drug benefits oftentimes can result in an HMO losing members, as those members tend to seek programs that have more liberal benefits, such as prescription drug reimbursement. Many of these HMOs are waiting to see what their competition is going to do before they decide definitively what they're going to do in this particular regard.
One thing that HMOs have to figure out, even if they do agree to pay, is how many pills. In other words, how much sex is a man entitled to each month, or each week, or each day at his HMO's expense. A broader question is whether Viagra will be sought out by men who are not suffering from impotence, but who are looking more for an aphrodisiac.
Oh, no, this is a good idea.
That's a great idea.
To take this.
Got any more?
Yes, I have 9 left here.
At Men's Journal, which has been writing about impotence for 2 years, they've been flooded with calls from men who do not necessarily have a physical problem.
It's unbelievable the people who call in looking to find out whether they can join a drug trial or when and where they can get this drug before it was available and by prescription. The only other issue that comes close is actually baldness and hair growth products. And it's the same reason. Men identify their self-worth and their self-image by, you know, how virile they look or feel.
Warning, say all the doctors, Viagra is not an aphrodisiac.
Does this pill turn you on?
No.
Does it increase your libido in any way?
No. No, the pill has to be combined with sexual activity. So after an hour or an hour after taking the pill, the man then engages in some type of sexual activity. He has to get stimulated. There has to be that mind involvement in order for the pill to work.
Which in a way is reassuring. Word may be out about yet another miracle in the shape of a pill, but it still takes a dose of poetry to make the magic. This is John Donvan for Nightline in Washington.
So, is Viagra the catalyst for a new sexual revolution? Some answers to that question when we come back.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Buick.
Joining us now from Chicago is Dr. Domina Renshaw, the director of Loyola University's Sexual Dysfunction Clinic. And from New York, Dr. Steve Lamb, a physician and author of a book on sexual dysfunction. And Mark Jeannot, the deputy editor of Men's Journal magazine. Dr. Renshaw, you work with patients every day. In fact, up until just a few minutes ago, you were working with patients, so let me begin with you. Since the announcement of the much-touted benefits of Viagra, how has your practice been affected?
Well, it's been surrounded by phone calls, impossible to handle all. Particularly biblical is a real expectation of magic. I'm 68 years old, I'm in a wheelchair, I've had transverse myelitis, well, I have feeling in my legs, it's like the blind will see, the lame will walk. Unbelievable expectations. People that I saw 15 years ago want a prescription called in without being seen. Everybody is so excited about this pill. It is hysteria, mass hysteria. So I think we need to educate the public about a lot of things. This is not an orgasm pill. It's not an aphrodisiac for men or women. The first patient that I knew took it 10 days ago, went to bed with his wife, forgot to do the foreplay. They both fell asleep, Viagra and all, and they woke up the next morning. So it does need foreplay.
Well, let's move a step further. As you have disabused your patients of their rather grand expectations, what do you find are the concerns that seem to bubble to the surface?
I think importantly, the women already, this is 1 week later, because we haven't had it on the shelf in Chicago more than a week, are saying, is it the chemical or is it me? Would you be as interested? Why didn't you have an erection with me before you took the Viagra? That's already there. I have wives, more than one, already counting the number of pills because I'm prescribing a small amount. It's too expensive, so I prescribe 6 with a renewal. And they're counting the pills in case he goes with someone else because now she feels she cannot trust him.
Mr. Geno,
so that's a big jump.
It is. Mr. Geno, you write about these sorts of things a great deal, I know. So as you look at how men and women are reacting to this, you find a significant difference?
Well, I think that men look at it as an opportunity to really make themselves feel sort of better about their performance in bed. I think that obviously there are 30 million American men who are impotent. There's a huge market of impotent men driving this drug, but the reason that it's been hyped so much and the reason we're all talking about it over dinner is because every man in America wants to look at it as an opportunity to be a sexual superman. I think women are probably looking at it, if they've got husbands who have been impotent and therefore haven't been able to have sex with them, for them it's an opportunity maybe to have a fulfilled marriage or a fulfilled relationship finally.
So are you suggesting that even though Pfizer is saying very carefully, look, this is for impotence, that's what it's for, don't be surprised if it doesn't help you otherwise, secretly we're all saying, well, I actually think it's an aphrodisiac and it might help me.
Exactly. I think we're all buying into an amazing hype machine that's going on around it, and regardless of what Pfizer says, and I know that they want to make sure that the information out there is the accurate information, everybody is glomming onto this as something that may answer all of their fondest sexual dreams.
Dr. Lamb.
Please remember hope. Hope is a very strong basic emotion, and it reduces the anxiety about will I or won't I have an erection. Just knowing I've got this tablet in my wallet gives him hope that he's going to make it. And 2 of our patients had erections for the first time in months, although they hadn't yet taken the pill. One man said, as he was talking to me with his wife, I already feel tingles before they left my office. That's hope.
Dr. Lamb, let me ask you what appears to be a disingenuous question, but I'm not looking for the obvious answer. Why is there such astounding interest in a drug that is 70% effective in treating impotence?
Because every man in America is worried about his erection. It's the core of his being. He learned that as a child, and he remains, totally consumed and involved with his erection. What we realize and what we must realize is that the erection is simply the first step in a relationship. And that's really where my book begins. The Virility Solution really says that a man with an erection is going to be very, very lonely unless he realizes that intimacy is more than foreplay, which is the 4th quarter of Monday Night Football.
And he won't get the erection, will he, unless he actually has intimacy to make it happen.
He will, exactly. It is not an aphrodisiac. It is a facilitator of erections. It is not a facilitator of relationships. Relationships will begin when a man has an erection because there are many, many men who avoid intimacy, avoid dating, avoid contact with women because they are embarrassed by their lack of performance. We're looking at men who are dissatisfied with their sexual performance, and their sexual behavior then responds to this negativity.
All right, let's pause for just a moment if we could. When we come back, let's talk a little more about what this says about how men and women get along and what it says about how they might be getting along in the future when this pill is floating around. That when we come back. Back again talking about Viagra, the new sexual potency drug. Dr. Lamb, I was struck by what you were saying just a moment ago. It sounded as though you were describing a little blue security blanket called Viagra for a lot of insecure men, and men who seem to be unable to distinguish between sexual performance and actual intimacy. Is that what you're getting at?
I think this has been a problem that men have had all along. I mean, there's a very big difference between sexuality for men and for women. Men count their days by how many times they have intercourse. Women count their days as to how many times they get hugged. Unless men realize that erections are the first step in an intimate relationship, they're going to be very lonely at the end of taking their Viagra.
Dr. Renshaw, do you then think that this enormous interest, all these telephone calls that you get, all the prescriptions, and heavens, a lot of them are not from people who suffer from impotence, is a reflection of problems between men and women rather than something else?
Well, I think the important thing is because the penis is visible, it's impossible for a man to fake an erection. A woman can fake arousal A man cannot, and therefore it's an agony for him, because if he cannot, then he may lose his partner's goodwill or good feelings. One wife finally said to a man, "I didn't marry you for your erection, I married you for the person." And men don't believe that because they feel devastated when they're unable to have an erection.
Dr. Ritchell, I spoke with some women friends of mine about this as we get ready for this program, and some of them said, doesn't it just figure? Isn't that just like a man that they're going to hit the phones as soon as they hear that there's a pill out there?
Exactly. It's because they're so devastated. It means everything to a man. If a man's gone through a bankruptcy, if he's gone through a divorce, he can become impotent just because of that psychological reason, because it pervades his whole life. And I think for many men, once the hysteria dies down, just having it and knowing that he can have it is going to be enough for him. Not that he needs to use it, but it's there in his wallet if he needs it.
At Men's Journal, Mr. Geno, you study the lifestyle things. How does this affect dating? How does this affect how men and women get along together?
Well, we haven't seen how Viagra itself is going to affect the way that men and women get along, but I think it's worth pointing out that the men who are calling in and jumping to the phones to get this drug right now are, I'm guessing, almost probably 99% of them are men who are impotent. So it's a bit facile, I think, to imagine that, you know, I've been on some call-in shows since this all hit the media, and there's a very judgmental streak out there suggesting that, you know, men just want to perform or whatever. I think that that's driving the hype, but I think most of the people buying the pills are impotent, and it's a debilitating condition.
And I think that, you know, when you look at sexual dysfunction, erectile dysfunction, it's really, as we said, 80% biologic, but 100% psychologic. This pill is really a golden opportunity for both men and women to raise their level of performance. It's going to give a lot of people a second chance, but they have to realize that they have to transition from the erection to communication. And unless they do so, this whole value of the pill will be lost. I mean,
Dr. Lamb, why couldn't we look at this another way? Why couldn't this actually be an expression of very real problems that are out there, perhaps in larger measure than we ever realized, and that this is an opportunity for it actually to come out of the closet and to begin to talking about it in a way that is very helpful?
I happen to agree with you. I think that, you know, the causes of sexual dysfunction are myriad. We're talking about atherosclerosis, we're talking about diabetes, and we looked at 8 out of 10 of the most popular drugs used in America, and 8 out of 10 of them induce sexual dysfunction. Blood pressure medicines, antidepressants, acid reducers, cholesterol-lowering medicines. All of these medications contribute to sexual dysfunction. And it is devastating for both men and devastating for couples and devastating for relationships.
And I think the saddest thing is that they stop lovemaking when they stop sex-making. And there's a world of difference between the 3-letter word sex and the 4-letter word love. Optimally, we bring them together, but when men have problems with antihypertensive medications or others, they stop making love because he hasn't got this erection. So for those kinds of men, the pill will help.
I have patients who have actually stopped dating. I had a very handsome 52-year-old successful man. I asked him why he wanted the pill and what he's been doing the last few months. He says nothing. He's been waiting to open the door. I think that this is going to be this is going to basically open the floodgates for dates. I actually think it's going to be very, very positive.
Dr. Ritchell, it seems to me that there might be yet another area which is very helpful, and that is for older Americans who might have had some fall off in their sexual abilities, and this could open up new worlds for them.
Well, I think it does give them hope. And we're going to have to wait and see for another few months what it does in the older men.
It actually gives them erections.
Sorry, yes, I hope so.
It actually gives them erections, not necessarily hope. It actually gives them what they hoped to have.
Which is...
Okay, what age group are you talking? In the 70s, Dr. Lamb?
I'm saying, you know, primarily in the 60s, but there's certainly cases in their 70s who have milder forms of atherosclerosis.
No, but have you used Viagra with them yet?
Yes, I have.
Let me pause for just a moment. We only have a few minutes left. I want to come back in just a moment and ask one last question of all three of you, what your biggest concerns about all the hype and what is said is possible and what your biggest hopes are. That when we return. Back again, and Mr. Genot, let me start with you. Cut through all of the hype that we have been hearing about this drug, and as you study it, what are your biggest hopes, your biggest concern?
Well, my biggest hope, actually, is that it will be an opportunity for men and women to open up lines of communication, both in the bedroom and everywhere else, about what sex is and what it should be. My biggest concern is that the wrong people will try to get a hold of the drug. They'll be very disappointed by it, probably, and it'll lead to sort of a plummeting in interest in this subject, possibly.
Dr. Lamb, what would you say?
I hope that I never suffer from erectile dysfunction, and I hope it facilitates
Thank you for sharing that
my love for with my wife.
All right, sir, but I'm asking about the drug itself. What do you hope that this could accomplish?
I think it's going to really end some of the terrible agony that we see out there, men suffering a really devastating problem. And I really hope what it does, it starts the dialogue between men and women so that actually even women's level of sexual satisfaction is also raised, and a lot of work in biologic studies are done both on men and women to really end this kind of devastation.
Dr. Renshaw, your hopes, concerns?
My biggest hope is that we all remember to do the loving and the affection and the touching that we must not forget. I'm not so worried about the abuse because it does nothing to a normal man.
Dr. Renshaw, Dr. Lamb, and Mr. Genot, I thank you very much. I am absolutely confident this is not the last discussion we will have about this. I'll be talking to you again. Thanks very much. Thanks. That's our report for tonight. For the latest overnight developments, watch Good Morning America tomorrow. I'm Forrest Sawyer in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
If you'd like a transcript or video cassette of this or any other edition of Nightline, please dial 1-800-CALL-ABC. Nightline is always on with abcnews.com, on the web or AOL.
Nightline has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABC News, now always on.